Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Metaworld News. This week it is the highlights for the week ending May 27th already of the grand old year 2018. Yes, indeed. Now, this is the program where we bring you news and information about sort of social virtual worlds, immersive places you can go, meet people, collaborate, do stuff, and allied ventures. And we also look at a little bit of virtual reality hardware, or rather, interfacing tools, if we consider them to be important news and relevant to that sphere of interest. Anyway, let's get going. Pardon me. First of all, I'll tell you that you can look me up anytime on Twitter at twitter.com/malburns. That's MALBURNS. And most of the links I'm going to be mentioning here, you will find posted on that feed, so you can click through to them if you don't hear the addresses I give it you. We also have a secondary feed for this show, which you'll find at twitter.com/metaverse. Oh, sorry. Maybe start again. Twitter.com/Metaworld News, all one word, just as in the title of the show. And the links you'll find there tend to be more particular news about things happening on particular platforms, particular grids that are within our field of interest too. Anyway, to start off, we don't actually have a very busy week this week. Go figure. Although, was it a bank holiday? Or is it a bank holiday? Or was it a royal wedding? Or was it a cup final? It was something. An awful lot of this stuff came round.
Right. Past week. Right.
Yes, I think people are in this sort of slightly holiday mood. Summer's coming on and all that. So it may not be official, but it's lazy time. Anyway, not too lazy. There have been a couple of things. And the first thing is rather good news for Britain here. I suppose you'll find that virtual reality -newsnet. So it's virtual reality, the two words written as one word, and then the dash, and then news.net. And it's the Immersive Economy Report, or an immersive economy report, or the immersive economy report, anybody guess you look at it, suggests that the UK is a VR/AR hotspot. And basically, got a load of figures here. The site I'm reading it from is VR360. Sorry, that's the section, I should say, that I'm reading it from. I already gave you the actual site. Apparently, we here in the UK have an oversized impact on the virtual economy and augmented reality spaces, with companies specializing in generating 660 million UK pound in sales and accounting for an estimated 9% of the global market. With appropriate support, I like the way they say with appropriate support, this figure could reach more than £1 billion English pounds during 2018, which of course is this year. So it's basically implying it can go up a long way during the course of this year. Anyway, various summary of other facts and figures there. And there's a link to the 52-page paper itself, which is the link will lead you to the Government UK website, where the white paper, it's a 52-page paper can be got, so you can read a little bit more in detail about this. So as I say, the article that I've just been referring to, you'll find at virtualreality-news.net. Okay, so let's flip me thingy. 3 days ago, this sensory reality boost will make you feel VR. This is a post you will find at vrscout.com. That's all one word, VR in letters, and then Scout, but spelt as one word. And this is something called Sensix, SENSIKS. Sensix is a glimpse of the direction multisensory virtual reality could be heading. While the obstacles VR faces is delivering visceral, deep skin sensations. But Amsterdam-based startup Sensix is trying to solve this problem with sensory reality pods, or SR, as their CEO calls it. Yeah, AR, VR, MR, What's this one? SR. Yeah, this is quite a party they're having, isn't it? Right. SL, sorry, NSL indeed. SR now joins the party. SR Pod is a high-tech booth emitting artificial heat, wind, and more while you wear an Oculus with headset. Of course, you still need your headset, don't you? Anyway, the author had a chance to try it out at VR World London. I didn't, but they did. And they interviewed the CEO, a guy called Fred Galstorn. And took a photograph of themselves while they're at it. So, wonder more about that particular toy. Go away. Windows pop-ups. Thank you. Right, and finally, just for this section anyway, to voicesofvr.com. This is a podcast site. There are several Voices of VR podcasts during the week, both of which I've got as marked up as 4 days ago, actually, although there would have been several in the week. Program 649 is Live, that's Liv. Liv's mixed reality shows the nuances of human movement in VR. And this is a talk with somebody called Six Liv, who is the CEO of Liv. Liv, by the way, is Liv without any E on it. Anyway. And talking about their mixed reality hardware and software solutions. And they're also number 653 of the same podcast. Totally different subject, really. Indian philosophy insights into VR presence. The 5 koshas. I presume you pronounce it kosher. It wouldn't be kosher. That's another thing entirely.
How's that spelled?
Koshas.
Yeah, cautious.
In Indian philosophy insights into VR presence. And to be honest, I also have to tell you, I haven't listened to it, so I can't really enlighten you. But the subject certainly I thought was worth a mention on the stream. So there you go. Okay, as I said, that's it for the main thing. I'm now going to move to our Metaworld stream here, which you never know. Occasionally it has a little bit more. In fact, it has got quite a lot more. It's the busiest one this week. It's normally the other way around. Okay, what have we got here? I think I mentioned last week's that Linden Labs Sansar project has dived into esports with a partnership with the Overwatch League, which is like an esports thing. Since then, they have been in the news a bit, as indeed has High Fidelity. We get a lot of news in, and we hear a lot of people talking about this, that, and the other. But behind the scenes, there are people around who are actually very carefully studying things like concurrency. And what it comes down to is that Linden Labs' almighty Sansar platform, despite tie-ins with Ready Player One and Intel's thingy and this major VR blogger and with Star Trek and all sorts of stuff they've been having tie-ins with, apparently they have a concurrency problem. The average concurrency is about 12 avatars in the whole of Sansar. And as far as anybody can figure out, there's never at any one time been more than 50 avatars in Sansar at any given time, which is not a good sign compared to even their older platform, Second Life. You can expect to sort of have double-figure thousands of people in at any one time. Now, admittedly, Sansar's beta, but it's not exactly a case of them not publicizing it. I mean, they've had these tie-ins and everything else. So a lot of people, saying good luck, and maybe it just needs more exposure and in the right place and everything else like that. But by implication too, the suggestion was that also Philip Rosedale's own new platform, High Fidelity, does, I don't know, they actually publish concurrency, but this, publicly, but it was seemed to be suggested that they're there. It's not the lack of having loyal users. It's the matter about how many loyal users they've actually got. And of course, when you read about events and stuff like that, you're given to think there's more, there's a lot going on there, but are all the events being attended by the same clique of people who actually concurrently in that world? So there's no actual article I've got to give you here, although Ryan Schultz at ryanschultz.com did have a sort of rough piece on this during the week. And I think he may have included links to some of the other places where the actual statistics are being collected by independent third parties, I might add, which tends to be where they get their value, of course. Okay, tell your statistics. There's one place you can always be sure of getting some of them, and that's Maria Koloff's Hypergrid Business. 5 days ago, there was a post from Hypergrid Business, although it was actually by David Karuki. It's one of these posts that actually covered quite a few things, and it other than the particular item that was in the headline. But the headline was OpenSim Land actives down this month. Basically, OpenSim grids that are public lost the equivalent of around 4,000 regions during the course of the month, although 4,000 regions is the total land area is 80,000. 671 standard regions, so 4 out of 80 is not. It's not like a huge disaster, is it? Number of active users appears to have dropped too again, but again, fractional. I mean, it could be seasonal and stuff like that. HG Love added the highest number of regions, 200. Out and Proud Grid added 112. Remember, these are regions. They're not necessarily leased to anybody in particular. They could be just a grid themselves. And a grid called Grid Nirvana, which I've never heard of, added 100 regions. And another grid called Kinky Grid added 95 regions. These I hasten to add, I do hypergrid around a bit, but these are some that I just haven't come across. Most popular grids at the moment appears to be OS Grid in number 1, Metropolis number 2. One called All City is at number 3. Greek Life is at number 4. And DigiWorlds is at number 5. I'm not going to read out the others. Oddly enough, there are some major grids. Franco Grid, for example, doesn't come into 21. And Great Canadian Grid doesn't even appear to be on in the top 25. So I'm I've
So Mal, can you hear me? I've just lost some audio. Let's see.
Oh.
I'll pick you up in SL voice.
Is that you, James? Trying to say something?
Yeah. I think we're having problems in Discord, but I can hear you in SL voice.
I'm hearing music like an electronic keyboard. Okay, I'll carry on. James was trying to say something. It wasn't coming through. I was getting musical notes instead. Right, Vertec have reported a drop in revenue. They're one of the sort of transactional currency people. Globits, on the other hand, their network transitions continuing a steady climb. Craftworld is to enter a maintenance mood for GDPR preparations. I will mention a bit more about that in a minute. Camelot Kingdom Grid continues reconstruction. Greek Life offers a bargain. Not doing the adverts here. A lot of people, as always, are trying to offer you bargain prices on land rental. And this is interesting. I don't believe this can actually be right in total, but there's a list of 17 grids that have been marked as suspended this month. And one of those is Outworlds, although it's actually outworlds.ink. And Pathlandia, that is John Pathfinder Lester's grid. Also seems to have been marked as disappeared, whereas I'm pretty darn sure it hasn't. Take this as a pinch of salt, really. Region counts for the top 40 grids. Yeah, I can't read out all the figures here, but if you follow the link to hypergridbusiness.com and look for the post from May 21st, and the headline of the actual post is Open Sim Land Actives down this month, even though there's, as you've gathered, there's quite a lot of stuff there.
Mel, Mel, can you hear me now?
Jane. Yeah. Right.
Okay. We had a little problem with Discord, but I think it's resolved itself. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Fine.
And we had your voice from In-World Voice, so you're doing great. So.
I'm doing great. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You're getting the mixture of my voices, folks. This is great. It's the same microphone, but you're getting it from different places.
And actually, it sounded really good. So no problem there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sort of mono in stereo for all of you.
That's all right.
Or maybe I'm stereo in stereo. Who knows? All I know is it's no longer called quadraphonic. I was watching a YouTube clip in the weekend, and it was a recording of something, I think from '68. Yeah, that's telling, isn't it? Which was recorded in quadraphonic, and anyway, some new kid on the block, i.e. somebody under 50, commented to sort of, hey, these guys are ahead of the time. They even had this thing called quadraphonic sound. Well, it was unique to the times. Whether it was ahead of the time, it's another matter entirely. If you ever heard it,
oh yeah,
it was good.
When I was growing up, and it was fun. I loved the spatial perspective. But now we've got 7.1 Dolby, right?
Yeah. Well, well, we're going off subject, but if I haven't got it wrong, quadraphonic was additive method of deploying sound. I mean, I remember Pink Floyd turned up at a gig in Nebworth Park outside London here, where I was working, and they put up speaker banks at the four corners of the arena because they performed with quadraphonic sound. But there was kind of a separate feed going to each bank.
Oh yeah,
and also the only people and the only people that actually heard it properly were people in the middle of the arena, because people at the front sides or corners were still biased heavily to one one channel, whereas surround sound is totally subtractive. I mean, everything is based on a signal that is removed from mono to make, which is mono is left, and the signal removed becomes the right, and then removal processes give you, you subtract sound from the main signal to create extra channels. Whereas the quadraphonic, I think they're actually, they're separately sending out different signals to the different banks, so there was no subtraction process. But hey, I'm getting off topic
very
here.
Technical, right?
Yes, it's probably giving a layman's approach, which is probably totally wrong, as all the sound engineers will be on my back in a minute. Right. Talking memories, let's get back to this. A post here from RyanSchultz.com. That was right. He has quite a lot of posts out the week now, although he does seem to have his bias seems to have returned to hanging out in Second Life and reporting on Second Life fashion as well. But he does have odd posts out the week on other worlds and stuff. And on Monday, I think it was Monday, he had a post called "Remembering the Vibrant Virtual World of Mist Online." Uru Live or Uru Live.
I wondered if you get to that story.
You did?
Yeah,
right.
I know that smell is mist, so.
Right. Oh yeah, did I miss the mist story? Yes.
Yep.
Anyway, Ryan was just going through some old pictures and stuff like that, and decided to give a little roundup of that world, which is in terms of some people think of it as a bit of a forerunner of virtual worlds in some ways, because it wasn't kind of a shoot 'em up game. It was more of a puzzling thing where you had to immerse yourself and think for yourself. But it was still a solo, kind of lonesome experience, as they say. Anyway, right, beginning 19th of May, which has actually happened already, but that was when it started. Metropolis Grid is the German. It's not the German grid, but some people often consider it to be so. It's based in Germany, and there's a lot of German language stuff there. And they've been celebrating their 10th anniversary. And amongst the things on my feed is a video that you can play all about their 10th anniversary. And yeah, also another video that's up there. Oh dear. This is a clip called Between the Night and Nowhere, a lovely clip. It's by Karima Hoysan, who is a superb creator in OpenSim. But you'll have to go to my feed to press on the link to get it. Obviously, they're probably at YouTube or one of the similar sites. Right, where did he go? So Microsoft just closed the window again for me. Thank you. Open it, right? Okay, moving forward, another one from Ryan Schultz, actually, which was I posted today, or I found today. He's done another quick brief introduction in his series of brief introductions. This one is to Utherverse and the Red Light Center, a brief introduction. And that's exactly what he gives you, and, suggests that it's all about sex, basically. If you want sex, you can find better places with more realistic avatars. And if you're not interested in sex, there's nothing for you here anyway. So basically, he was giving it a miss on both counts, whether you're interested or not. Okay. He's got, yes, here we are. His blog also has a guest editorial by somebody called Galen, Galen, on his blog, and the blog's called A Tale of Two Sansars. And again, this is one of the follow-up blogs to this sort of information, shall we say, about concurrency. And it tries to put it in a good light by showing that there is actually quite good peak concurrency at particular times for particular events, or if two events are going on, and it's suggesting that the lack of concurrency is simply at times when nothing is going on. But it doesn't actually alter the figures, so it's a bit of an excuse, really. Right. Also, there you go. Ryan Schultz again. They're all Ryan Schultz in this feed, by the look of it. Kama Sutra VR, perfect example of the uncanny valley. There's a demo of this too, which I think I also published ourselves on the same feed. Looks good, but I don't know what else you can say about this. As if and Utherverse weren't bad enough, then this appears to be another virtual world, which is well, it's not so much virtual. Well, yeah, it is another sex one, quite frankly. 3D avatars of porn stars for you to ogle. How bad could it be? He describes it as pretty terrible, but in fact, in one way, it may have succeeded, because it's actually terrible. He says, "Have you ever heard of the uncanny valley?" Aesthetically, the uncanny valley is, a hypothetical relationship between the degree of an object's resemblance to a human being and the emotional response you would have to such an object. And I must admit, I really did want to find out what all this is about, so I did actually click the button that said, "This is adult hereafter, at your own risk," and I entered. And very, very 3D lifelike female avatar with all the bits fully exposed, and various things inserted into a lot of those bits. I'm not going to go into this in any great detail, but it would say lifelike. And the suggestion really is it's like an idealized sort of kind of porn hub, except that because these are virtual, the virtual forms can do things that the actresses and actors in the porn places can't do. Might that make any sense? Anyway, it is another world, and it is another arguably social world. It has to be social, really, given its subject matter, doesn't it? So, inevitably. So that's called Kama Sutra VR, CAMASUTRA VR. And RyanSchultz.com is where you can find a little article about that. Or, of course, you can look up the place on the web. It does. Oh, the other thing as well is that it loads into a web browser, this world. So when I say I clicked in and went to examine the ladies in question, this sounds awful, doesn't it? It was all on the web. In other words, I clicked through and the virtual environment launched on the web for me in all its uncanny valley glories. So I was quite impressed with the technical side of it. Anyway, RyanSchultz.com is RyanSchultz.com. And the same Ryan Schultz was responsible for all those last three. Right, and finally, I'm going to move to, where are we? What's it called? My Posts. Yes, this is the one I want. Not My Posts at all, but just a quick butchers, as we say in the UK, at Google Plus. Yeah, I've got one thing I've noted here on Google Plus. Twice as many grids are using Globits than Podex. This is another report from Hypergrid Business by David Karuki. Mobius Grid has implemented Globits now. As we know, Tangle Grid, that has its big expo regions, they have Globits. Globits is an independent financial system. It's kind of a PayPal for virtual worlds almost. You can have a wallet, and increasingly more and more grids on the hypergrid do actually support Globits. Traditionally, before Globits was around, the main currency in OpenSim and on the hypergrid was a currency called Podex. It wasn't the only one, but it was the main one. But the Podex currency had different sort of names on different grids, and you could only use it on the grid that you were on. In other words, if you had 100 Podex units on the Great Canada grid, you could go to DigiWorlds, which also had Podex, but you couldn't spend them there because they were a different kind of Podex for DigiWorlds than they were for Canada. Whereas Globits, you just register account, put a little bit of money in, and that counts for, in world currency. And increasingly, you go to somewhere like the aforementioned DigiWorlds or Great Canada grid, and they now support payment with Globits. The only thing you will find is that once you're on the grid, if it does support Globits, it may also have a local currency like Podex too. And different regions on the grid do actually have to decide which currency to use. In other words, they can't simultaneously use both currencies. A marked region will either be Podex or Globits, or some other currency that somebody coughs up, but I don't know about. So if you get the idea. Anyway, it does seem that Globits is rather successful on this front, and now there are now more grids that are relying mostly on Globits and less on their local currency, which will probably be a Podex. Right. That's a lot. I think. This time last week, of course, I was also hesitant about this week because on Friday, of course, the new European data regulations came in. I'm still puzzled. There have been a few grids popping up, especially in Google Plus, announcing that they're implementing a new terms of service. You've got to agree to this to comply with that. Also, there was an interesting article, however, in the Guardian over here in the week. I think it was actually on Friday or Thursday, the day before it all came in, saying that you may have been getting a whole load of emails from people telling you they need to get you to agree to this, that, and the other, and whatever to comply with the European legislation. And As I understand it, most of those emails that were sent to you were probably in themselves illegal under the rules, because it's like spam email, isn't it? If you get an email from somebody who you provided a service for you ages ago or something, and they tell you, whether you're using it or not, that you've got to go there and sign a thing, giving them permission to have all your data, and they're giving you the link to get there. They may actually be in breach of the regulations, but because they've actually got your email address, if you see what I mean. So there's a lot of ifs and buts going along here. The only good thing, oh, well, this is, I suppose, a matter of opinion, but on the very first day the legislation came into effect, Facebook and Google have had combined actions taken against them to the tune of $600 billion for being in breach of these regulations. So, although they made a lot of fuss about complying, they don't seem to have actually understood what it is they're meant to be complying for, because they're still in non-compliance. So, in fact, it's these big companies, the big data farmers, who shouldn't be doing no such thing in the first place, who actually seems to be suffering here, not the small Joe. Unfortunately, for those of us on OpenSim and the hypergrid, things are not quite so easy, although they really should be. There's technically every grid owner seems to be, especially commercial grids, seem to be rather panicked about whether they're in compliance or not, whereas I think they're misreading the obligations to a certain extent. But what it has meant is that if you go hypergridding around and go out of your grid may want you to sign new permissions on data. If you're a registered member of the grid, you would probably expect that. But increasingly, it's some are saying it's breaking the hypergrid, because you choose a location to go to hypergrid there, and you get stuck in the middle of what we call hypergrid limbo, with a message telling you've got to go to the website of that grid and register your hypergrid avatar and give them permission to, know all about you. In other words, your IP address, your assets, which is presumably inventory and everything else. And technically, if everything worked properly, I don't really know that you should need that any more than you fly into a country and go through customs and everything else like that. It's not, well, with the exception of the United States, they don't immediately demand the inside of your head on a plate, in terms of data. I think we have to wait to see a lot how this pans out. I mean, that's if it's as restrictive and as harsh as some people are saying, then I don't think we'd have any kind of productivity left in the world. Certainly, I mean, given that there are 100 grids on the hypergrid, I do not want, it will be over for me if I can't just hypergrid to them. I'm not going to go to a website for every hypergrid jump to register and give permission for them to hold my data so that I can actually go through customs. I mean, my inventory is still on my own grid. My suitcase is, hanging on there, coming through there. They themselves should not be nicking anything of mine. They should just be seeing my avatar, what I'm wearing, and all my assets and things, and my identity. I shouldn't need to give them any other kind of permission at all. Maybe I will give Globits or something, who are controlling my wallet, a bit more information. But I don't see why I should cough it up just to go for an hour-long concert on some grid or other, across the hypergrid. So, my moan, yes, it's the moaning spot. What do you think about that, James? It's a bit of annoying, isn't it, to sort of not be able to hypergrid without taking a detour to register and book your visa and cough up a document giving them permission to snoop on you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly is. I mean, anytime you're going to blend privacy and access, you're going to have some inconveniences. Of course, I guess I'm drawn back to my thought that the most secure computer in the world is a computer without a keyboard, mouse, and power supply. But you trade off usability for the level of security. That's very kind of a general statement, but I do think that what has to happen, and I really do think that the GDPR effort is really well merited, and I think it's very important to protect people. And
Yeah.
what is going to need to happen is going to have to be some international case law that really interprets the directives. And I do think that it's really targeted not at the small grids, the people that are really not maliciously targeting getting people's information, but it is really directed at these large global services that are collecting data and selling it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't join the panic of the smaller groups of avatars and users that are concerned about how terribly they're violating privacy. I don't think they are.
Yeah. I mean, I don't doubt if it's really directed in any sense at virtual worlds.
No.
The thinking behind it is on a much greater level, and it's possible there is something in the hypergrid protocols that's bad. In other words, a grid. Maybe there are grids out there on the hypergrid that know more about you than they should necessarily need to. In which case, that might need to be addressed. But the general mechanics of jumping from grid to grid. I mean,
yeah. And again, to function,
it's like jumping from one web page to another. You don't expect to have to stop over and sign in to every web page you get to. We've already got sort of go away. I will accept your cookies. I accept your cookies. But next we're going to be having 20 different contracts to sign before we can even read a web page. It doesn't figure at all.
Yeah. Well, and there is again the trade-off between usability and confidentiality. I could say I'd love to have a phone call from you, but I'm not giving you my phone number.
Yeah.
So where does that leave you?
Well, you lose because you don't get a phone call.
That's
but
right.
You win because they don't get your number.
Yeah, I don't get my number. That's right.
It's what you call the trade-off.
That's right.
You choose, not them. That's the important thing is you choose, they don't.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the principle. Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Okay, well, no doubt we'll be hearing more about that in odd things as they come up throughout the week and following weeks and following months and following years, etc., etc. And I still can't figure out whether Britain is. Well, Britain must be subject to all this, by the way, the EU stuff at the moment. But of course, ever since in 2 years' time, when we're out of Europe, we may not even be governed by that anymore. But as we've said before, it really is an international problem because data travels by the fastest routes available, and that can be across any territory whatsoever. The only place it doesn't seem to go is North Korea. So go figure. Right, okay, well, that's it for this week. So nothing else from you, James, I take it?
No, nothing. Just I just wanted to reflect when I saw the post about Myst in your feed.
Oh, yes.
And I did download the game that came out 2 years ago called Abduction.
Oh,
and,
I haven't got that. That looks lovely.
Yeah, and I tried that in the VR headset, and it was, I think the published reviews are right on target that it was a beautiful experience to look at, but it was really frustrating to move around, to go from point to point. And so much of Myst is solving those puzzles where you travel over here and get that thing that you can answer this question over here. And combine that with the difficulty of moving in VR was it's hard to say, but it was beautiful. It was I think it was a great effort.
And does it work? Does it work on a 2D screen?
I think I don't know, but I believe there was a version. I think the VR version came after the 2D screen version.
Yeah, it feels like a couple of years now since Abduction was first. Yeah, I would be inclined probably if I ever saw it to pick it up because it's you do have to buy it on DVD or CD-ROM or something. I think.
Yep.
To run it, so I'd probably pick it up because I love Myst and Riven and the ones after, and this is all before virtual worlds as we know them now.
Right.
Whether I'd find time to play inverted commas. No, if I did find one, I don't know. But I mean, the Cyan brand, as it were, the vision, the worlds that they created are just great. And
Yeah, and this is very true to that.
the,
Very true to that
yeah,
vision.
the snapshots I've seen of it too have been
Yep.
just taken me there,
Yeah.
like a good movie. Except movies end, worlds don't. Yeah, that's my new key phrase. Movies end, worlds don't.
I guess maybe you escape worlds. Wasn't that the point of Myst, to get back?
Yeah, I've forgotten. Well, no, it was discovering the history, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Of that kind of story. But yeah, but no, it's great stuff. Very immersive, very escapist, I suppose. But ingenious puzzles. I had to buy all the guides so I could cheat in the end. There were some of those puzzles I never did solve myself without a bit of help. Really rather insidious, some of them.
Right.
Anyway, that's gameplay for another day. Okay, well, I think that's it for this week. I hope some of the news we brought you has been useful, folks. We will be back at the same time, same place, roughly next week with more news. So we'll see you then. It's goodbye from me and goodbye from the other one, him.
Thank you. Thank you, him.
Yeah. What do we? How do we do?
Thanks to that, him.
Yeah, something like that. Well, I've forgotten how we do this, It's different. It's just a bigger mess every week, isn't it, really?
Yep.
Okay, so from both of us, bye for now. See you soon.